What do you define intelligence as?
Intelligence is the capability of a person to gather, use, and analyze information.
Do you think that this definition would be a Western perspective?
It would absolutely be a Western perspective, because a world perspective would add a cultural element to it for sure.
How would you then define an intelligence from an Eastern perspective, and why would you define it this way?
Intelligence from an Eastern perspective would basically be based on each individual society that has a different definition of what intelligence is, and you're talking about it becomes a socioeconomic factor of what gauges intelligence. And sometimes there's a fine line between what's seen as intelligence and wisdom in other cultures. Our culture seems to think it's one and the same, where in other cultures they see it as two separate identities. So it's really hard to define in those contexts. It's more looking at it from individual countries and cultures, how you define it.
Do you think intelligence is cultural, and how or why would you say that?
Yeah, absolutely. Intelligence is extremely cultural. It doesn't mean that a person is not intelligent, but somebody may lack an education, and that happens in a lot of cultures. So again, the key factor is socioeconomics in regards to what is considered intelligence, along with culture.
How would you define intelligence?
Intelligence is a tough one to define, and it's a hotly debated topic in psychology. Generally, we think of intelligence as your capacity to understand or comprehend. There are different types of intelligences. Some people have more abilities in different areas, like musical areas or kinesthetic areas. And it just all depends on what you're good at and what you practice at and what you enjoy.
Do you think that this definition would be considered a Western perspective?
Absolutely.
And why?
The major areas of thinking that I've learned about are all Western. Textbooks, my education was Western. The media is all influenced by Western thought and thinking, and it's getting better, but I definitely is influenced by the modern Western style cultures.
How would you then define intelligence from an Eastern perspective?
That would be difficult. I think the closest that I could come would be to define intelligence in an acultural fashion, or at least attempt to, although everything you do is through your own cultural lens, and you have to realize that as a researcher and as a scientist. But aculturally, trying my best, it would have to be similar to the one I gave about intelligence being your capacity to understand and comprehend. I think maybe culturally the differences might be in the types of things you're able to comprehend, the types of intelligences. They may respect musical intelligence more than scientific intelligence, or vice versa, all depending on the different cultures that you might be looking at.
What do you define intelligence as?
Intelligence. Personally, I think that a lot of people have this misconception that intelligence is like a collection of knowledge. But I think that knowledge that is not useful for real life application is useless. So I would say that it's the ability of having the information, to be able to connect that information at different levels, and to develop skills that will help you to problem solve something, to be resourceful, to multiply what you know, okay, for real life application purposes.
Do you think that this is or that this definition would be a Western perspective? If so, why?
Well, I don't consider myself Western or Southeast Asian or nothing. I just consider myself like world perspective because of living in 5 different countries. So I will say that this is a very universal thing. But that's my point of view.
How would you then define intelligence from an Eastern perspective? And then why would you define it this way?
Eastern perspective. It's just that I think that the intelligence over there, what I witnessed is that it was tinted also by culture. The way that they express their knowledge, the way that they express their skills, so they allow themselves to show their know-how, their knowledge. It's moderated by their culture. So sometimes they hold back their tongues, they hold back their actions because of the strong role that their culture has. But that was my experience over there.
Do you think that intelligence is cultural? If so, why? Or if not, why as well?
I think that it's not the belonging of anyone, of any particular culture. I have mingled with different nationalities. I mean, right now, currently, they're like 30-something with my other classes. And I think that each particular culture, each particular country, they have their ways of expressing what they know. But I think that knowledge and the development of those skills and the connections with the previous, present, and future knowledge, that is, once again, is not exclusively for any culture. I think that is something that you were born with it, or else.